Ramon, staff writer for Salon.com. Democratic strategist Keith Boykin, MSNBC contributor Michael Smerconish is with us as well, syndicated radio talk show host. And with us from afar, Steve Deace, also a nationally syndicated radio talk show host. But this time we allowed you to come on with a regular camera, not Skype or on a FaceTime or whatever. So you'll have some edge up here. Let me start off with Michael, because one of the polls we're looking at is Pennsylvania as well. The president is up, but I believe now about 3 points. That is your home state. Mark Murray and the First Read team, they really like to look at these state-by-state battleground state polls over the national polls that so many people get caught up in day to day. What's your take and your read on what we're seeing, Michael? My read is that it's not the swing state that it's cracked up to be. It frankly hasn't been won by a GOP candidate running for the presidency since Bush 41 back in 1988. And I will believe that it's a true swing state, Tamron, when I start to turn on my own television at home and be inundated with commercials, because right now that's just not the case. And money does talk in this circumstance. If all of a sudden both candidates commit to it, or if the Romney campaign forces Obama to defend his turf in Pennsylvania, I'll start to feel that way. But right now, I don't see it. Let me play sound, Keith, from Mark Halpern. He was just on with Andrew Mitchell. He just left the Obama campaign headquarters. Here's the intel that he was able to acquire. We're talking with Team Obama in Chicago. Let's play it.
They feel just as good about where they are today as they did 2 weeks ago. They said that while there is clearly public polling that shows some change, that they don't see any fundamental change in the race whatsoever. Keith, do you believe that? I mean, is that wishful thinking, or is that an accurate read? I mean, obviously, Andrew Sullivan is Obama supporter, but he's a conservative. I'm not even sure these days exactly what, but nevertheless, he says he's trying to look for a silver lining, and he feels that it's been disastrous. That's one person's opinion. What's yours?
Yeah, I was at the Jets game last night, and
boo!
People started.
You should only go to Cowboy games. What's wrong with you?
People started booing Mark Sanchez in the first quarter of the game.
Wonder why?
Well, yeah, I mean, but this is a team that's had a losing season. The contrast here is that with Barack Obama, you've got a team. He's on a winning team. They've run a perfectly flawless campaign. He had one bad debate performance, and now everybody's ready to throw up their hands in fear. I think people have to settle down and focus on the fundamentals, like Michael Smerconish was just talking about a moment ago. Of the 6 states in the country that have 20 or more electoral votes, Barack Obama is leading in 4 of them. Right. The only state that he's not leading that's a swing state is Florida, and that's a state that's tied. So the fundamentals of the race still favor Obama, and people have to keep that in mind. Well,
Erin, let me bring you in on this. In Andrew Sullivan's article, he wrote, "I'm not giving up. If the lies and propaganda of the last 4 years work, even after Obama had managed to fight back solidly against them to get a clear and solid lead in critical states, then reality-based government is over in this country again, and we're back to Bush-Cheney, but more extreme." I mean, Keith says that it was one debate, absolutely right, but it was one debate with, what, 70 million people, more eyes on that debate than any speech that we could carry on all of cable news combined, than any radio program, any Twitter account could ever get. Right. So it is one debate, but it is one that was heavily tuned in. Now, perhaps the second presidential debate may be double. People may be curious to see, will it happen again? But nevertheless, it's not just one debate. Well, it is technically, yes.
One debate that not only is very visible, but a different Mitt Romney showed up than the one the Democrats have been talking about, and Obama just let that happen. So Mitt Romney showed up, and he seemed like an affable, energetic guy who could just fix things. Obama showed up, he looked tired, he looked listless, and he didn't challenge him, he didn't challenge Mitt Romney on his extreme positions or on the extreme positions of the Republican Party, honestly, including his running mate.
I mean, and I always love your insight. We've been hearing that now for several days. We're past the debate, but we're still at that same conversation. But even with Democrats, they're still talking about the debate mystery that happened.
It's a vacuum. There's nothing else to talk about right now until the next debate.
What we can talk about is the fact that women have been deserting. We have 2 polls now showing that women have been deserting the president. He had an 18-point lead in that Pew poll.
We have that poll. Let's pull it up. It's tied at 47%. I don't want to just isolate you because you're the woman here.
Happy to talk about it.
Oh, and 2, and you guys know women, but nevertheless, Erin, we'll single them out. But what is the change here?
But this is where I think the debate really comes in, and Mitt Romney being allowed to define himself as a moderate. Obama didn't bring up reproductive rights. He didn't bring up fair pay. He didn't bring up Lilly Ledbetter or the Supreme Court. And thus, when people had been hearing for weeks that Mitt Romney was just like Todd Akin, Mitt Romney was going to take away your birth control just like Rick Santorum, they didn't see that guy. And now you have especially white women deserting the president for Obama, hopefully temporarily, but we have one poll showing that he's ahead with women. I'm sorry, tied with women, and that was an 18-point loss.
Right.
And we have another poll showing that the gap has narrowed to 6 points.
Let me bring in Steve Deace on this, because if these numbers are accurate, the shift in women and the analysis from Aaron, it is because Mitt Romney is presenting himself as more of a moderate, which is completely on the opposite side of the planet that you want him on as a conservative. This Politico article says even now many Romney officials wonder whether the change can be sustained. In essence, Romney is trying to undergo a political metamorphosis to shed an image of personal stiffness and to emerge loose and willing to compromise. I bet you just fainted as a conservative that they want him to be willing to compromise. You think that's a part of his problem, Steve?
I think this whole thing that he moved to the middle is laughable. I mean, I'm talking to conservatives around the country. I mean, some of the issues that the person who spoke ahead of me brought up did not come up in the debate. It's Barack Obama's job to bring those issues up. And when he does, we'll see how Mitt Romney responds. But for the most part, I thought Mitt Romney did a fine job defending free enterprise, defending free market economics and small government and limited spending. And I think that's where he got the big boost. And I think the biggest boost that he got of all, frankly, is the Republican base is more united right now than it has been since the Scott Walker re-election, and it's because of Romney's debate performance. I don't talk to conservatives at all that believe the so-called mainstream media meme that Romney won this debate by moving to the middle. I mean, we must be living on two totally different planets, because I just don't hear that from conservatives around the country at all.
I think Keith does believe you both live on two different planets. I'm just going to interject that, but Michael, do you think it's baloney? I mean, you've got, Politico reporting, several insiders here felt that Ann Romney and Tag wanted Mitt to be more personal and wanted him perhaps to soften the edges, despite what I guess people like Steve Deace would want to hear as conservatives. Let Michael answer this one
Just
for
in
me.
the last 48 hours, I think that they've made efforts, the Romney campaign has, to humanize him. And what comes to mind is I reflect on the GOP convention and the lost opportunity that they had, where I thought that the Mormon testimonials were the most moving aspect, the most compelling aspect of the entire RNC. And yet it was lost because in prime time you didn't see it. Only geeks like me who tuned in and watched everything saw it. Instead you saw Clint Eastwood and the empty chair. All of a sudden they're recognizing the error of those ways, and they're trying to present him as more the Massachusetts moderate who governed that state.
And a more personal, I guess, personality. Yes. I want to play what just happened within the last hour. Take a listen to this, Steve. This is Mitt Romney discussing how one of the former Navy SEALs who lost his life in Benghazi, Glenn Daughtery, that he'd met him a couple of years ago. The Daughtery family apparently confirming this to Martin Bashir. Let me play what Mitt Romney said on the campaign trail.
One of them was a guy actually from my home state of Massachusetts, and a relatively young guy compared to me. And he was a former Navy SEAL. He was living in San Diego, and learned about him. He talked about his life. He skied a lot. He skied in some of the places I had, and we had a lot of things in common. He told me that he keeps going back to the Middle East. He cares very deeply about the people there. He served in the military there, went back from time to time to offer security services and so forth to people there. You can imagine how I felt when I found out that he was one of the 2 former Navy SEALs killed in Benghazi on September 11th. And it touched me, obviously, as I recognized that this young man that I thought was so impressive had lost his life in the service of his fellow men and women.
Now, as we understand, it's the first time Governor Romney has told this story, but it fits exactly, Keith, into this article in Politico that Ann Romney got involved, and the quote was, "Let Mitt be Mitt," and we keep hearing this over and over, or "Let Ryan be Ryan." But nevertheless, that story, while confirmed, perhaps is the handiwork of Ann Romney and Tag Romney pushing the chief strategist, Stuart Stevens, out of the way and pushing away conservatives. They said this course correction, according to the article, came despite a loud chorus of second-guessing among prominent conservatives.
Well, it seems to me what Mitt Romney just did in that statement was he re-politicized an event he politicized on September 12th. I don't think that's going to help him if he's going to continue to talk about this issue that way. I think it's good that he's trying to make this move to the center in terms of winning the vote.
Okay, but Steve Deace keeps saying, hold hogwash to that. He says it's not true.
Because Steve didn't hear everything he said, apparently, and everything he's going to say, Steve. Well, let me just put this out here, Steve. I mean, what I think the conservatives and Republicans are happy about is not that Mitt Romney has embraced conservatism in the debate. They're happy that he beat Obama. They're happy to have somebody who got in Obama's face and challenged him. Obama didn't respond. They don't care who that person is, who the spokesperson is. They just hate and despise Obama so much, they're willing to even have Mitt Romney, who they don't like themselves, to go after him and say even things that don't completely agree with their agenda. And so, Steve, I'm a little surprised from you that you would go along with that when he's clearly not continuing the message about pre-existing conditions, about taxes, or about regulations. He's flip-flopping again, and I think he opens himself up to this charge that he's this guy who has no core again, which is the charge that the Obama campaign had started at the beginning, but they kind of fall back on.
Steve, I want to get Michael in on this as well. I don't want to tag team you here, but nevertheless, you heard Steve screaming from Mount High that that's all hogwash.
You've just heard it the way, at least I believe it. The base of the GOP has been waiting for a groin shot to the president. I hate to say it that way, and this is as close as they've come. The aggressiveness of Mitt Romney in that debate is what they're buying into, not so much the substance.
Steve Deace?
You know, maybe somebody who's a member of the GOP base can actually answer some of these questions. The reality is, just saying.
But you're also a part of the You Don't Like Mitt Romney fan club. So who are you, Steve Deace? Who are you?
That's what's so unique about this.
Okay.
What's funny about this is conservatives around the country couldn't stand Stuart Stevens. Conservatives around the country couldn't stand Eric Fernstrom in the Romney campaign. In fact, conservatives around the country were begging the Romney campaign to do exactly what Politico says Ann Romney suggested he do, which is to act like a human being and stop being the Republican reincarnation of John Kerry. Act like you actually want to be president. Act like you actually have some leadership chops. Show some of the leadership you showed when you made Bain Capital into a global success story. Show that you'll do that as president of the United States. Conservatives have wanted what Ann Romney is suggesting. We should not mistake a change in temperament or a change in persona to be a change in principles. But I will say this. One thing I can tell you about Mitt Romney, and that's why we always keep on the right, we always keep the proverbial gun loaded, if you get the metaphor, is we do know this about Mitt Romney. A change in principle is always possible. I will agree with that.
Well, that's exactly why John Huntsman called him a perfectly lubricated weather vane, because the guy just takes whatever position he thinks is consistent for the people he's talking to. And ultimately, the conservatives will not like that if he gets elected.
That he can't expose that?
I think that the
Obama had a chance to expose that on a national stage, and he punted. He didn't take advantage of that.
Steve, I agree with you. Not only did he not make distinctions on reproductive rights, as I mentioned, he said something like, there isn't a big difference between me and my opponent on Social Security. I think that was definitely an unforced error.
We've got to end this before Steve's head blows off, because I'm afraid he's at a fever pitch here. Michael, thank you. You've been so patient. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you as well, Keith. And, of course, Steve Deace, the one and only. Coming up.